welcome to the Language Field podcast. This is season 3, and this is our first episode, episode 1. We have a little bit of a treat for you because we've just hired a new content editor for our ELT training library, and that is Jill Hadfield. So you may have seen in social media and on the emails, we've been celebrating Jill with the hashtag #CelebrateJill. And over the next couple of episodes of the beginning of our season 3 podcast, we're going to be interviewing Jill and learning about her life as a teacher. She's taught around the world. She's done teacher training around the world. She's done research into best practice pedagogy. She's written heaps and heaps of books. So this interview, which we're starting today, it just explains who she is, and we're just absolutely delighted to have her on the team. So without further ado, I will start our first part 1 of our interview. I do apologize because the video system that we've used is supposed to kind of switch between speakers, but at the beginning it just has me the whole time, listening. You can still hear Jill's voice, but towards the end, she does come and you can see her speaking as well. So apologies for the slight mix-up there in terms of where the camera's focusing, but be patient. And if you're listening, obviously that doesn't matter. You'll hear her voice anyway. But for those on YouTube, that's kind of how it goes. So here we are. Welcome to 2019, Season 3, Episode 1. Let's get to know Jill Hadfield. So Jill, welcome. And it's super exciting to have you as on this podcast, and obviously this is part of our Welcome Jill campaign because we're very excited to have you joined the team recently as our brand new ELT Content Editor. We've never had someone officially with that title before. We're obviously doing this big promotion. We've been sending emails out and a little bit on social media kind of welcoming you to the team, and there's been a bit of response on that, so that's really nice. So welcome.
Very glad to be with you. It's a very, very exciting prospect.
Good, yeah, and hopefully we'll make a lot of wonderful changes to the offerings we have and add a whole bunch more in the coming months. So I just thought what we'd do is invite you onto the podcast. We're doing one big interview now, but we will break it up, so it'll be kind of probably broken up into 2 or 3 depending on how long we end up chatting today. So it's really just to introduce you and to help our regular listeners and the people who are members at Language Fuel understand a little bit about you and your background and that sort of thing. So my first question is, some of our people are very familiar with your books. I certainly have used a lot in my own teaching, and I know a lot of people have as well. How many at last count? I can't remember. I don't know. Do you know the number?
No, I don't. It's around about 30.
About 30. Yeah.
But if you added in books where I've contributed, say, a chapter, or I've written some of the materials, that it would be more than that.
Be a whole lot more.
Over 30, it's a nice round number.
It's a nice round number, and it's actually saying something that you don't even know the number because you've done so much, and I think that's one of the things that impresses me about your work is that you've been incredibly prolific, just really contributing in many ways. So that's
sort of arid patches, I can say.
Yeah, I'm sure that's probably true. So, and in your recent time at Unitec in Auckland, which has been about 14 years, I think we were mentioning before, you've also had the opportunity to, produce research as well. So what kinds of things have you been doing in terms of research there?
Well, quite a variety of things. I guess I'm a bit of a butterfly. Some people sort of have a research interest that they pursue through their whole life. But I've sort of flitted around a bit. When I first joined Unitec, in the days when you and I were teaching together on the BA, and we were teaching a course called Varieties of English, I was actually editing a series called Text Messages for ELTJ on varieties of English. So both world Englishes like Indian English or Singlish, but also varieties of English like a colleague, Martin Andrew, did a very nice text message on the language of real estate.
Yes, I remember that actually.
An Indian academic did one for me called Dearly Beloved, the language of spam emails.
Yes, I still get emails that you say, beloved so-and-so, and you go, really?
And I did one on New Zealand English called Becoming Kiwi, which was, I kept a diary of how my daughter's accent changed.
Nice.
when she was legally of age to give consent, I asked for her consent to publish it, and she agreed. So it's based, yes, based on the diary of the sort of misunderstandings and collisions that happened with language.
Yeah.
And then it was just such a privilege to work with, you know, other authors on the series and edit them. And for example, David Crystal did one for me on text messages. He used a text poet and did an analysis of the language he used. Anyway, since then, I've just written on a variety of subjects. I've been very interested in creativity, theories of creativity. I've written about learner preferences. More recently, I've been interested in motivation since I wrote the book, Motivating Learning with Zoltan Dornier in the Research and Resources series. And most recently, I've been doing research on the writing process because I started a PhD started out as by artifact and exegesis. So the artifact had to be a creative work. I used my part of motivating learning. And the exegesis, you had to keep a reflective diary on the writing process.
Yeah.
Over the few years I've been doing it, I produced a series of articles and a book chapter on the process of materials design and the principles that underlie designing materials. So it's been very interesting for me to do. And I managed to also turn some of it into practical materials. So some of the research has led to some practical materials that people could use on courses to help people develop materials design. In fact, I use some of them on a course I teach on materials design at Unitec.
Nice.
So that's been quite an interesting journey.
Yeah, and it is, like you said before, a bit of a butterfly because you touch on such a number of things, and some of it's real, I guess, more kind of academic-y, like even understanding different features of genre and stuff like that, you know, and that is relatively sort of feature dense. But then the creative process, that's a very humanistic side, I think, you know, it's very tied up, I would assume, in things like personality types and like you say, motivating learners. That's very individual. Some people are motivated by different things, you know, so it's nice to see a very broad range of the things that you've looked into. Yeah, problem. All right. So, Jill, you've also had quite a geographical journey. I know you've lived in many different places. Do you want to just walk us through that and some of the sort of stuff you've been doing during those times?
I suppose my first year was a gap year before university in Germany. And I got married. Charlie and I got married at the end of university. And Charlie got a job as a lecturer at Bordeaux University. And I also got a job teaching English in the fac de médecine, general English, but some of it was sometimes to doctors. And that's really where we fell into EFL. We started out on the road to academe, we were both doing theses, and just gradually fell into EFL. I think most of us fall into EFL, don't we? I don't know anybody who's actually sort of planned it out as a career move from age 18 or anything like that. And that was actually a wonderful time to be in France because Alan Maley was head of the British Council, and Gillian Ladouce, I don't know if she wrote a book called Role Play and several other things. And she, and Speaking Personally, she wrote as well. She ran a society at the university called UPLEGES, which was, I don't know, Union Pédagogique or something or other. But the acronym actually, if you looked at it in English, it looked like UPLEGES. And we all called it UPLEGES. And we had fantastic speakers come down to Bordeaux and do sometimes whole day workshops. So Alan Maley, he was writing his drama techniques book at that stage, and we had a 2-day workshop in Toulouse on drama techniques. Nice. And then other eminent people came down and spoke to us. So at the end of that, we were wondering whether to stay on in Bordeaux, but Alan actually advised us. He said, go and get a qualification and then what happens. So we went back to London. Charlie did an MA in Applied Linguistics, and I did a PGCE, a Postgraduate Certificate in Education, in EFL, and which was wonderful, actually. We had a teaching practice with ethnic minorities in in London.
Wow.
Then I think it was an 8-week teaching practice in Madrid. They chartered a plane and we all flew out to Madrid, 40 trainees and 3 tutors.
So nice. I'll just interrupt you there because, from a New Zealand perspective, it's so difficult to, to travel to other countries. So it's nice to hear of how easy it is in London to just quickly pop over to Madrid, It's so close to everything over there.
We were given 2 days to find accommodation and then start teaching. And I taught in a Catholic girls' school called Isabel la Católica. And the girls all had names like, I still remember some of them, Purificación de la Concepción and Inmaculada Buenos Morales. they were just great girls, actually, and it was a load of fun. Anyway, then we went back. Charlie got a job at the end of university at the end of his postgrad course at South Devon College, which was a great place to be because Rod Belyther was our head of department, and there was a lot of creative, exciting creative stuff going. We took 3 periods of leave of absence from there to do what we call our aid decade. First of all, we worked on a World Bank project at a university in China, and we had to set up, there were 10 British teachers. Charlie was director of the project. And we had to set up from scratch a language centre to teach academic English to postgraduate students who wanted to study in the States or an English-speaking country. Most of them went to the States, I think. Some went to Britain. And we arrived to sort of empty rooms and unpack boxes of books, set the whole thing up. It was very exciting.
Wow. Did you bring resources with you?
Yes, they got shipped out from England. So we had to set up a language lab. Some technicians from Norway came and set up a Tandberg. Remember language labs?
I do remember language labs back when it was kind of unique to have your own sound device. Now we've all got things in our pockets that can give us sound and all sorts of things. But at the time, super fancy technology, right? With tapes, right?
Yes, with tapes, sets. So we set that up, and then in the second year of the project, in the first year of the project, 10 Chinese teachers went abroad to Bell to do a training course, and they came back. And when they came back, I was in charge of mentoring them into teaching roles, because the whole idea of the project was to set the whole thing up and then phase ourselves out and them in. So I was in charge. I matched each one up with a sort of a buddy system, and they team taught and then gradually started to take over the teaching. So
fabulous.
That was, it was a very rewarding thing to do, actually.
And that's really your first sort of teacher training experience from what you've said. That's essentially, even though it's peer mentoring and that kind of thing, that's essentially, bringing them up to standard.
Training experience was right at the end of my PGCE. One of the tutors invited me to teach on a course for French teachers at London University. And I said, I've only just finished training. I can't train teachers. So she said, you can.
Pass on what you've just learned.
What we just told you. So yes, it was my first sort of long teacher training experience.
Yep.
And then possibly my most exciting, well, they've all been exciting, but just a dream job was a 1-year contract at the University of Tibet. They were setting up an undergraduate program in English, and we had to design the program and teach it, and do some professional development for our university colleagues, and then hand the project over to 2 VSO, that's like VSA in New Zealand, coming to replace us. And that was just wonderful experiences. And I can remember
such a unique experience. It's a unique place, isn't it?
Yes. Oh, it was wonderful. The people, the spirit of the people, and the conditions we worked in were, shall we say, exciting. Not only is Lhasa sort of 3,000 meters, which is you get above sea level.
Yeah, cold.
Yes, and altitude sickness.
Oh, wow.
I got really out of breath. Going up a flight of stairs in the first weeks there.
Wow.
And as you said, cold. In the winter, it was about -20. Inside our flat, it was -8. There was ice inside the windows. And what happened was that not only did all the water pipes freeze up, so we had no running water, and we had to get it from the pump. which was quite a walk away, but all the kind of waste pipes froze up. So we had to go to the sort of public loos. I used to cycle there actually just to get there quicker.
Go to the bathroom. Wow.
I washed my hair once and it froze.
Oh.
Bicycles, yeah. And when we were really depressed. Teaching, I had to get the students up about every 5 or 10 minutes to do some exercise. Otherwise,
keep them moving.
We're unheated. So everybody was kind of padded out, kind of. And I had so many clothes on, I could hardly lift my hand to write on the board.
Wow.
So when you were kind of feeling a bit low and sitting in bed in about 9 layers of clothes with balaclavas and 6 pairs of socks, I took out the British Council briefing document that we'd been given, because the British Council liked to brief you, but nobody had ever worked in Tibet before. We were the first people.
Wow.
So they gave us briefing notes meant for diplomats in Beijing. And my favourite sentence, and I read it out in this bitter cold to Charlie. A reasonable white wine, suitable for poolside parties, is available from the Friendship Store in Beijing, but champagne, when required, should be ordered by the crate from Hong Kong.
Wow. Priorities, right? How about where do I get really extra thermal, leggings and tops from?
Please send another ski suit quick.
Yeah. Wow. Gosh.
No, the lovely thing actually, even in the winter, by midday it was warm enough, to take several layers off, and the sky was always this brilliant blue, cloudless, and such a beautiful place.
That's amazing. So it was 1 year. It was a 1 year contract, and you did the full year. Yeah. All right. So we're gonna leave it there in terms of the interview. We will carry on next week with part 2. So where we're up to is that Jill has just left Tibet, and she's about to tell us about her time in Madagascar, which is another very interesting chapter. Tune in next time. Thanks for listening. And if you would like to go in our draw, we are giving away a free premium membership to the ELT Training Library as part of our Celebrate Jill campaign. You can enter the draw at www.languagefuel.com/celebratejill. All right, ka kite anō. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Language Fuel podcast. For more episodes and to learn what we do at Language Fuel, please visit www.languagefuel.com.